All right, everybody, welcome in. Drew's supposed to be on there. Don't know where he is. There he is, or kind of. What's going on here? There we go. We're right. We're right now. You don't need
We're
big me. You
back.
don't need one me. You need two of us, and we're here ready to go. I have made a promise that this is going to sound very NPR-ish from me tonight. I'm going to try to keep my voice down and make sure that my daughter doesn't wake up. She's hit a stage of her life where she absolutely refuses to let her mom put her to bed, but because dad had to work, she has to let mom put her to bed tonight. And if I screw it up, we're all going to be in a lot of trouble in this house. Probably everybody except for my wife. She can do no harm. Drew, speaking of a team that could do no harm tonight, even though they tried as hard as they could in the first half, the Kansas State Wildcats, winners again, believe it or not. They beat Cincinnati by a lovely score of 54-49. A wildly impressive game. You can be sarcastic about that and talk about the offense in this game, or you can be serious about it and talk about the defense in this game. Both teams made it genuinely tough on their opponent to score the basketball tonight, but K-State came out on top. The spark that they needed was Coleman Hawkins returning back to the lineup, and you can point to a moment in the second half where dead ball comes, bad stretch for K-State, and Coleman Hawkins comes over screaming at the K-State sideline. And from that point forward, it seemed to trigger something in K-State. A lot of guys that probably got the sentiment of, oh, if this guy's playing through an injury and busted it to get back to play with us, we better bring it as well. They brought it the rest of the way. K-State with a very gritty win against Cincinnati. And I think it takes K-State out of the realm of having to play in that top half of the bracket on Tuesday at the Big 12 tournament. That is significant. Again, a lot of people will point out, oh, it's silly to talk about the Big 12 tournament like this, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you're right. But guess what? What else are we going to talk about with this team? You kind of need that situation to play out. And the easiest path would be for K-State to be in the bottom half of the bracket. That is likely unless another scenario plays out to where K-State would actually win the race to 8 that Drew and I talked about earlier in the year. Then they would get a bye and they wouldn't even play on Tuesday at the Big 12 tournament based on the other results that could happen throughout the Big 12 in this final week. But we'll talk about all that later. Drew, we got to get your immediate reaction to K-State sweeping Cincinnati this season. This was your Super Bowl all year long. You got the first win. I think you were probably really nervous about the revenge game. Turns out you had nothing to worry about because K-State came through for you both times.
Yeah, first off, feels good to be on the right side of where Cincinnati was at the beginning of the season. Still sitting at 7-12. It's not a guarantee that they even beat Oklahoma State on Saturday, so good for them. But I think you have to start this game, and I'll take the positive spin and say that the defense was probably as good as we've seen it all season. Like Cincinnati wasn't getting a lot of open looks. Everything was contested. Guys were right there on the catch. And I think that you can only point to probably a handful of breakdowns. And weirdly, they came on like baseline out of bounds plays that K-State just flat out couldn't guard. Everything else, they made life really, really hard for Cincinnati. And I think that that's probably the first storyline for me. And then piggybacking off of that, I've talked all year about how this is one of the worst defensive rebounding teams in the country. That was as good as I think we've seen K-State defensive rebound in the entire Jerome Tang era. Like, there was guys getting boxed out all night. There weren't a ton of easy offensive rebounds for Cincinnati. Like, some of them they got because of just a tap out. And I think that that's, again, just a big deal because K-State's first shot defense throughout the first 3 years of Jerome Tang has been solid. It's been they can't get the rebound, and that leads to an easy second chance that has killed them in some games. And in a game like this where it's 54-49, which, by the way, not even the lowest scoring Cincinnati game of the season, as they scored 40 in their game against KU. But in a game like this where it is a grinded out kind of game, you can't allow offensive rebounds to be happening. And K-State didn't. I think Cincinnati ends with I believe, 8 offensive rebounds or 10 offensive rebounds, and only with 7 second chance points, where K-State had 8 offensive rebounds and 9 second chance points. I think that just shows you how well K-State was rebounding and how well that they were just guarding, period, because when Cincinnati was getting offensive rebounds, they weren't able to really do much on them.
Yeah, that was easily one of the biggest parts of this game was K-State being able to actually kind of come down with some rebounds and help themselves out in this game from that standpoint because like you said, the first shot defense, that's never been like a major issue for Jerome Tang. It's been everything that comes after that and allowing the opponent to grab some boards. K-State only gets out rebounded by 1 in this game. They only give up 2 more offensive rebounds than what they were able to achieve. And for the second straight game, K-State holds an opponent to under 40% shooting from the floor. And oddly enough, neither team really got to the free throw line tonight. But K-State went 10 times. Cincinnati went 11. K-State made 7 of them. Cincinnati went 5 of 11. I wrote about that in the keys to the game today for K-State because Cincinnati is not a good free throw shooting team. K-State hasn't been a good one either, but Cincinnati was going to give them the opportunity, and K-State, for the most part, made them when they mattered, and they held on at the end. I know that there are some people talking about game management at the end. Ben notes that Cincinnati's was terrible at the end. Yeah, Wes Miller was clearly upset about, or at least disappointed that he didn't seem to know that they were reviewing the clock situation there. I think he had to have I just don't know how you have all these coaches now in every sport, but in basketball, it's way more than what they actually need. How can not one person have it brought to their attention that they're looking at something over there? So there has to be something that they're looking at. Well, in that situation, you have to know. I have no sympathy for Wes Miller there, and I imagine in some way it was probably communicated to him by the officials. And look, I didn't think the officials were great today. I thought it was another bad showing, but I have a hard time believing that they just completely neglected it. And also, he should have had better awareness there. And it's a 1-score game with 18 seconds on the shot clock instead of 6. Then you don't need to have something insane drawn up. Or if you love the play that you drew up because there's 6 seconds left, then that should be good enough for you. Like you should be able to look at it and say, oh, you know what, actually, we'll live with that. Like, let's go get that shot. We think it's going to be a good one. So, Cincinnati did not handle that well towards the end of the game. Ron asked, how many times will Tang continue to run clock last 4 minutes and take team out of rhythm and get terrible shots off? So what did you make of the game management on both sides down the stretch here, Drew?
I mean, it was a lot worse for Cincinnati. That decision to foul as late as they did the first time was as baffling of a decision I've seen on a basketball court in a long time. And I think that Wes Miller is a good enough coach to not tell his guys to foul then. But then it's like, what are you doing if you're Bandago, thinking that this is something that you need to be doing? Because then that set K-State up to win the game. Like beforehand, they were going to have to make a bucket, and then instead, all they have to do is just make free throws to win. And then even more hilarious is the 7th team foul comes before K-State can even throw the ball in because Cincinnati fouls Brennan Hausen. Like everything at the end of the game came up roses for K-State. Honestly, this was such a terrible offensive game on both sides. I didn't really see anything necessarily wrong with what K-State was doing in the first or the last 4 minutes because it's not like they were making shots to begin the game either.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, there really wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Both teams kind of picked spots where they went on runs throughout the game. And I would say with the flow of the way that this game was, I'm not as overly concerned about K-State not scoring in the last 4 minutes with a field goal, and then also like K-State having to kind of like feel their way around and just kind of bleed the clock. I mean, nobody shot the ball well here. Both teams, K-State was 3 of 18 from 3. Cincinnati was 2 of 18. There was little threat that a lot of shots were going to go in. You knew this was going to be a defensive grinded out game. the clock was more important in this game than the scoreboard was. And this is like a Bruce Weber game where K-State wins by 5 points, 54-49. In this game, and I know in the game of basketball, 5 points is not a lot. Like Cincinnati could have lucked some things in and whatever worked out in their favor. But in reality, like they probably weren't going to. And this is more like a 7-8 point game with how you had to grind things out here. So there are times where that's a problem for K-State. They don't have a clear cut plan at the end. I would say I think they did have one when Cincinnati was doing their thing where they just kept fouling and fouling and fouling. Like that was dumb, because I understand maybe the first time where Cincinnati only had 3 fouls at that point, that late in the half, because the officials were not calling much on Cincinnati throughout the game. There were also a lot of times where K-State looked like they got all ball and they got tagged for a foul. So my guess is that Wes Miller probably did tell them, hey, let's get a quick one because it's not going to impact us. And we kind of need to at least have a reasonable amount of fouls before the end. But then they just kept doing it, and they let the clock get down low enough to where the shot clock would reset. And if they played out the possession from that point on, there would have only been like 2 seconds left on the clock. And so that's where Cincinnati, that part made no sense to me when they kept fouling and fouling there. That's just a poor job of coaching by Wes Miller, and then bad communication and understanding and awareness by his players. Like, if you're playing college basketball at this stage of the game, you should be smart enough to understand the situation. And one of those guys step up and be a leader and say, hey, this is kind of stupid to be doing this right now. And not one of them did that. And that's probably because Giselle James is their number one leader in terms of how he plays out there. And he took some really dumb shots tonight. Some of them went down, but a lot of them were just like, yeah, I'm cool if he wants to keep shooting that as this game gets later and later in the process. But I know some people would disagree, but K-State was outdumbed by Cincinnati tonight in the way things played out. And that's why Drew and I have been so adamant all season long that Cincinnati are frauds, and K-State, they were just a team that didn't put it together. They weren't very good this year. Cincinnati, frauds.
I'll even say that, like, the way that the game was handled was one of the biggest, like, gaffes I've seen in quite a long time by coaches and players. Like, that was crazy. And then I 100% agree with you saying that a 5-point game or even a 3-point game in this kind of game, even though all it takes is one shot and you're tied up, it never felt like a team was going to hit like a clutch 3 in this game. Like, there were so many threes that went up in the air tonight that weren't even close. I actually do kind of agree with that. The refs did let them play quite a bit in the second half. They were consistent and consistently, like, really bad.
That's true.
Like, I thought David Gasson, they were on a stretch during the run that it looked like K-State was just going to really blow it open. I thought there were times where he got fouled probably 3 or 4 times on shots, and they could have been and ones.
Yeah. Yeah, David Gasson took a beating tonight a couple of times. I thought Bandango was probably getting a little handsy with him, and nothing ended up getting called there. So, yeah, pretty impressive win for K-State, all things considered. And I think the sentiment from some of the people commenting, like, they struggled, things weren't going well. And again, this is another point where this team very easily could have just said, we quit. Who cares? They came out, they fought. Coleman Hawkins helped lead that charge. And now they've won back-to-back games, and you have Iowa State coming to town on Saturday. And obviously that would be a big one because what becomes the focus now, and what is at stake for K-State after their win. They're now 15-15. So if they can beat Iowa State at home on Saturday, they would finish this season miraculously, regular season, above 500, which, considering where things stood at one point, that would probably feel like a win for this team. And it's not going to fix any of the problems that came early in the year and have led to them missing the NCAA tournament. But it at least is, something to kind of take away. And again, I think this team, you don't have to look back fondly on them years down the road, but I think you do have to respect the guys that stuck around, competed and gave K-State the opportunity to at least not be a total embarrassment. And that's really what this team has been, has not been since the middle of January. They've flipped things around. They've gotten their respect, and tonight was another example of that. So credit to them, and really credit to Coleman Hawkins for continuing to be, I think, that driving force in that situation. And I go back to what he said after the KU game, where I told you, like, I didn't care what he said. It could have been bad. It could have been good. I just wanted to know where his head was at. And I came out of that feeling the best I had about that team all season. And they had the loss at Baylor that they easily could have won. And then they ripped off 6 straight wins. The 2 tough losses in Utah. We now know Coleman Hawkins was hurt throughout that. He misses 2 games. They lose both of those games that they easily could have won. And based off what we saw tonight, they probably do win if you have a semi-healthy Coleman Hawkins. But now they've won back-to-back, and here they sit looking at their final regular season game, a big one, 12:30 on Saturday, CBS against Iowa State in Bramlage. So that is what is out there. Now we can dive into, do you have anything else from this game that you want to hit on, or do you want to go big picture now, Drew?
I mean, I was just going to say kind of what you said. Like, Coleman Hawkins has taken a lot of crap this year from me, from you, kind of just from a lot of people. He didn't have to play tonight, and he did. And the stats don't show the impact that he had, because he was in control, and like that was a stabilizing force. He brought energy when there was a point where nobody on K-State was really playing with energy, when it was 35-28. So I think that just seeing that, because he didn't have to do any of these things. Like, he is out of eligibility at the end of the season. He probably wants to have a pro career somewhere, but he wanted to put his body on the line tonight. And I think that there's something really to that. And I think that that's really fun. And it's something that has really been missing from this K-State team. And really just, you don't really see this in college sports in general anymore. It feels like if their team is having a bad season and they want to have like a pro career and they're out of eligibility or not, they just decide, I'm good. Like, I'll just sit on the sidelines. But Coleman Hawkins is a lot of things. We know this. But the number one thing I think is that you should put when you think of Coleman Hawkins is competitor.
Well, look, this really just gets down to what I talked about a month ago or whatever, when we were discussing what was left for K-State to do this season. This is a genuine Mr. 3000 situation that is getting pulled off, where like the team is rallying, and they have rallied, and like the vibe has changed, I think, in a lot of ways. And Coleman Hawkins, the old guy with bad knees on the bench, has come in to save the day and get everybody moving in the right direction, and has set the tone for maybe a better future here. That's exactly what's happened. Coleman Hawkins is Stan Ross, aka Bernie Mac, and Mr. 3000. Which, again, if you haven't watched it, go find it. I don't know what streaming platform it's on now. It probably isn't on one.
Zero.
You probably have to wait until MLB Network decides to play it. You can rent it for, looks like $3.59 on let's see, on Google Play. Didn't realize that was still a thing, but you can do it. So and it's got great reviews, 4.5 stars on Google Play. So, I mean, what more do you need to go watch Mr. 3000? Let's get to this question from Garrett. Do you guys see us beating Iowa State with a 50 to 70% Coleman health? Look, I think it's possible. Here's the situation, though. They are in a spot where the shooting has been so bad lately. You're going to have to make shots against Iowa State. So I think you can do it with a semi-healthy Coleman Hawkins. If he's good enough to be on the floor, then he is going to be helpful to you in some way. But you're going to have to make shots. So Doug McDaniel's going to have to be more efficient, which Doug did some good things in tonight's game for K-State. He only turned the ball over one time. His shooting was a little bit better this evening, but you need some more of those critical shots around the basket to fall. Brendan Hazen can't have an offer from the floor against Iowa State, because you think about it, those two guys were so big against Iowa State back in Ames. So I think they can do it without him. It's just, is it a possibility? Is it a likelihood? I don't know. But we'll just kind of wait and see. Carl says, why has Hazen been so bad lately? There are a couple of things. Number one, I would just throw like the variability of shooting. We've talked about it. Guys that are 40% 3-point shooters, they're not going to just go 2 of 5 every single game or 4 of 10 every game. They're going to have some really high highs. They're going to have some really low lows. And for the most part, even Hazen's lows this year haven't been as bad as some guys. But what I think the struggle has been recently is that, number one, it's back to nobody else as being a real threat in the offense. And especially when Coleman Hawkins has been hurt or out, the offense just doesn't have the same level of flow. And so it's tough to get him shots in an offense where K-State already really struggles to get Brendan Hazen good looks. So more times than not, I think he feels like he has to get up bad shots than what he really needs to. So, yeah, it's a problem there. He struggled recently, but I don't think it's a total reflection of him. I think it's more reflective of this team as a whole.
I would even say, to go with that, when he has gotten good looks, it feels like he thinks that he needs to rush it. So I think that they need to really figure something out there in the offseason of, like, number one, get him more good looks throughout a game. And number two, make it so he doesn't feel like he has to rush up a good look when he gets one, because he had probably 2, maybe 3 pretty open threes tonight, and they weren't even close. And then that was very uncharacteristic of him, and just felt like he was rushing it. As far as Iowa State game goes, I don't know how likely a win is. I think Iowa State's going to come in pretty ticked off that they lost the way that they did to BYU.
Mm-hmm. And the fact that K-State punked them.
Yes, and that K-State pantsed them the first time that they played. So I don't know how likely it is, but I think that what you've really seen with this team, especially when Hawkins has played in the last month and a half, is that they aren't going to give up. So I think that it'll be a slugfest. I wonder how much Iowa State also will just be kind of coming off of that loss, and if they'll be kind of down, or there's a lot of variables that kind of go with how both teams played.
Yeah.
But like you said, if K-State doesn't shoot the ball well, they're not going to win.
Yep. K-State's just, if K-State's offense gets back to a good place, they're going to be in the game on Saturday. And the other thing that this win does is it helps draw some more people back into where they feel fired up to be inside the building on Saturday. Whereas if you had lost it, I think it's probably another not so great crowd like we saw the last 2 Sundays. It's going to be nice that it's back to being on a Saturday. It's early in the day. So I think that's good. And also probably some other things going on that get K-State to probably play pretty well, because I think the last time that these teams got together, this team looked at it as a big opportunity to prove how much they wanted to go to bat for Jerome Tang. And I think that plays into it again. I think they understand how much this game now kind of means to him, because I think Jerome Tang looks back on last year and thinks that that's probably an embarrassment for him and for his team to have to kind of go through that stuff. So I think this game means a lot to him. And obviously, since that incident happened last year, K-State's 2-1 against Iowa State, and the losses seem to impact Iowa State's psyche a lot more than K-State's. So we'll see how it ends up working out there.
By the way, obviously not going to be what the actual spread probably ends up being, but Bart Torvik just did an update, and they have the look-ahead spread for that game as Iowa State only by 3. So
interesting.
Kind of fascinating to look at there.
A couple questions about David Castillo. Carl says Castillo hasn't really had a fair chance, wasn't played almost at all early, got put in conference play with him, which is a big leap, because there was some Garrett asked about David Castillo and why he hasn't improved really this year. I'll hand this off to you, Drew, but I'm concerned at this stage of what we're seeing from David Castillo, because he was the weakest link on the floor tonight for K-State of guys that got minutes. And his were prolonged even over Ugo and Moby, who snuck in for a little bit because he had missed the game against Colorado. But it hasn't been as good as we thought, especially since there was so much positive buzz from players and coaches about him and how far along he seemed going into the season. And that's been a tough thing to watch because I think there was a lot of optimism there. Obviously, we know K-State has a need for a young infusion of talent into this team, and we'll talk about the recent recruiting news towards the end here. But that's one of those things that was a little disappointing.
No, I think that was by far the biggest concern. It has been, I think, for the last couple of weeks that Castillo's gotten a lot more run and has been pretty terrible in almost all the minutes that he's had. So to answer why has he not improved at all this year, that's a question I think more for the coaching staff. I knew that there was going to be a little bit of a learning curve for him because, like I said, when he even committed, he was a smaller guard that wasn't a point guard. So it was always going to be pretty hard for him to really kind of make an impact early. But then you heard how well he was along and how well he was shooting the ball before the season. And that just hasn't shown up during a game. And he went from a guy that in the middle of the 6-game losing streak was somebody that was like, yeah, roll the ball out. Like, let's see what Castillo has. Like, that's somebody that like I'd like to keep for next season to now. Like, I don't even think I would want him back on next year's roster.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't go that far. Just like I don't care would be the way that I would phrase it. Like, if he wants to come back, you bring him back, and you see if he can make a freshman to sophomore jump. Because college basketball, I think sometimes people get confused. Freshmen really, most of the time, do not contribute in any significant way. K-State's circumstances have led them to this position where he saw some time, and then obviously, yeah, there was some hubbub about him being pretty good there. I love the idea of David Castillo. I liked him as a recruit, but this has been a forgettable first year. So, if he wants to stay, work, you like him in the program, he should be welcome back next year. I don't think you should turn guys like that away. But he's going to need to make a significant jump. And he's another one of those guys that I've talked about. You make it clear there's just like there's no guarantee for what your role will be next year. You have to actually go out and earn it. But
Yeah,
I would say right now, if you're asking me if I have the confidence that he can go out and do that, I really don't.
He has to make a massive jump. Like, he has one of the worst offensive ratings in K-State basketball history.
Yeah, I know. You don't have to pull the KSU fan stat out about how he's like worse than Javon Thomas even. So
yeah, so that is a concerning point to me of like why I am like, if he wants to come back, great. If not, no, well, like I wouldn't go out of my way to be like, yep, got to keep him. But and that's just kind of, it is what it is, because there's more roster spots next year that K-State can have. But if K-State wants to be where they want to be, David Castillo at this juncture wouldn't even sniff playing on the court.
Yeah.
So that is my biggest concern and worry, and why like I wouldn't probably go out of my way to keep him, because he's somebody that if K-State wants to be a tournament team at this juncture, he's just not good enough right now. I mean, he is making middle school basketball plays out there. Like he had the lazy passes, the air ball floater, the getting lost twice on defense. Like, he can still get there, and I think that there is still something maybe in there, but it would take it like an astronomical leap for him to even be a pretty good player next season.
Yeah. It's a little disappointing and concerning there. Levi asked, "Is there any situation where we don't win the Big 12 tournament and get in?" No, that opportunity went by the wayside after losing to Arizona State and UCF. Those are just things that couldn't have happened for K-State, and they did. And that's why you look back now and you say, again, missed opportunity, because if you have those and it's a weak bubble this year, we've talked about that a number of times, but K-State would be sitting here at 17-13. And if they beat Iowa State, then they're 18-13. They have a lot of good wins. They have some of the star power that would drive them, but that losing those games in November and December are tough. And then just the fact that they needed to hit rock bottom in January one more time during conference play, that's a killer. And you think too, like, if they hang on to win that TCU game, I think they beat Oklahoma State. But I think that was the lowest they played Houston after that, and that was bad. So that's probably the low point. But like the realistic low point, because they were going to probably lose to Houston no matter what, because everybody does, especially on their home court. Like the team playing Houston's home court, since Houston seems to be unbeatable on the road for some reason, was that Oklahoma State game, where I think it all caught up to them. Like, dang, this thing is not going to happen this year for us. And then they started to figure it out. They're like, okay, we got to have some respect for ourselves. They earned that respect. They got it back just too little, too late. So all you can do is just try to finish strong and go to Kansas City with some momentum. Hope that things play out in your favor, and you're going to have a bunch of teams there outside of Houston that you've taken good cracks at this year, and you'll have every opportunity to go out and beat them.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like there's pretty much no chance that K-State makes the NCAA tournament without winning the Big 12 tournament. And I mean, that is, again, just kind of, it is what it is. They had a lot of chances. I mean, even though Coleman Hawkins didn't play, there was still unexcusable to lose to Arizona State the way that they did, and even UCF. So I'm getting back to the David Castillo thing, because I saw somebody say, like, where are we if we're like trying to kick guys out if they don't show out as true freshmen? David Castillo is in the bottom 525 basketball players this year in offensive rating total. That's not good.
Yeah, I just don't think you like fully give up on him if he wants to come back to develop. But I understand why you would be there. I agree. I don't think people like that, guys that have that standard and thought coming in, I don't think you just show him the door. But
no, you don't kick him out. But if he wants to leave, you probably don't.
Yeah, you don't have to. That's not one that you fight to keep. You don't divert too many resources to, and that's not to say that David Castillo's that guy, because I don't have any indication that he is, but just generalizing that situation and what teams have to deal with. Yeah, Riley, unfortunately, we did talk a little bit about my guy's dry spell, so sorry that you missed it. But basically just boils down to everything I've pretty much said all season long, where everybody's going to have not great shooting nights. This team also, his poor shooting in games is more indicative, I think, of the team itself, as opposed to what Brendan Haasen is doing. Obviously, he could make shots. Like, I'm not going to say that he's totally absolved. He's the one putting the shots up. But this team has to be able to get him better looks. The offense has to be better in that regard. Also, like, he was 3 of 5 from 3 against Colorado on Sunday. He was 2 of 6 against UCF. He was 2 of 7 against Arizona State. So that's under, 29%, but 5 of 11 against Utah, 3 of 8 against BYU. During the winning streak, he hit some big shots. Like, he's not been a bad shooter. That's one of those when it's the only thing you do, people can kind of see it and get it, a little bit flipped around. Bad night tonight. Not going to argue about that. But what we've seen during this, he had 4 rebounds tonight. He made the free throws that you needed him to. And the offense has to be able to get him better looks. And with Coleman back, that might happen. Drew, let's get into this, and this way we don't even have to do a separate video on it. We'll just do it right here, right now, because K-State picked up a commitment today. Ron asked about is getting McGee today a better get than if we get Wilson tomorrow? Seen McGee had a couple SEC offers. That is in regards to Ashton McGee, who K-State got out of the state of Mississippi today, and Xavier Wilson, who is committing tomorrow, that K-State seems to be in the lead for out of the state of Missouri. So, Drew, what do you have on Ashton McGee that should get everybody excited?
Yeah, Ashton McGee, I think the thing that would or should make people excited is he is at his peak, probably Xavier Sneed. Like, I think that is a fair comp for him. He's really bouncy, has kind of funky shooting form. It's not as bad as I anticipated it when people pointed it out before I had a chance to watch him. But he can do a lot of things on the basketball court, really good rebounder. Also, averaged 3 blocks a game during his senior high school basketball season. Is kind of the lottery ticket guy that you are going to get at this stage of the game because it's March 5th in case they didn't have a basketball commit yet. It's like those are the kind of guys that you're going to end up getting, or like the Xavier Wilsons and the Ashton McGees. And you have to really hope now that you scouted really, really well and you can develop really well, because a lot of high major programs don't have a lot of space for a lot of guys. Like Ashton McGee, I think, had an Ole Miss or a Mississippi State offer. I can't remember which one, but it wasn't even like the current staff that is at that school right now. So like that offer was pretty old. And McGee was starting to get some mid-major and low-major offers after his season and during his season. But K-State didn't really have a ton of competition for him. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because, again, like I said, at this stage of the game, you're hoping that you are out scouting and out working and can out develop every other program if these are the kinds of 2 guys that you're going to bring in, especially because there's a chance that these are the only 2 freshmen that K-State will have on the team next year.
Yeah. I think, the Ashton McGee one, that one is a little bit more along the lines of they were scrambling, they were looking for something, they saw it, and they thought, okay, this is a good guy to bring in. If he does nothing for us, we know that failing in high school recruiting, while not great, it's not like the end all be all for a team. I'd have to talk. I'll have to ask him about it this weekend. But Alec Bussey has has a friend that works on a college basketball staff, and one of the things that he did when he first got there was evaluate how teams broke down in terms of their composition throughout the country. How many were transfers at one point? How many were like naturalized, recruits? And a majority of them still were transfers at some point in the process. And what we've talked about all along is you want to get to the point where you're able to bring in those transfers that have at least 2 years of eligibility remaining. And that's where you do it. Now, I don't think you shy totally away from the high school recruiting, but I don't think that's where you make your money anymore in college basketball. So, K-State needs to live in the future a little bit higher in terms of maybe the projects that they're taking on. But Ashton McGee is a guy that you bring in. I think he'll work hard. I think you see some upside there. And that, guys, you're at least getting a guy that's clearly a really good athlete. If you see some of the dunks that he's had in game, like there's a lot to work with there to get him developed that you could turn something into. Those are the kind of guys you want to take chances on, not necessarily the kind of guys that I don't know what some people saw on them, like,
Yeah,
like I was going to say Dorian Finister, but
he is a guy that you need to bring somebody in. He has been a little bit of a late bloomer in this process. Again, it's going to come down to if they can develop a shot for him that's more consistent and has better form than what he has right now. So it's a pickup that is exciting. Garrett asked if McGee is somebody that helps K-State make a conference run next year. I'm gonna be totally honest. Ideally, no.
Yeah.
Like ideally, Xavier Wilson and Ashton McGee, if you are making a run at a conference title, unless they are playing way above their skis in terms of where they are ranked and what their recruiting profiles were. If you want to make a run at a conference title, you probably can't have both of them playing major minutes.
Yeah.
Like you'll probably see both of them at like spot times next year. But those aren't guys that I think that you want to be playing 25 minutes a night in Big 12 play.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Xavier Wilson, who is announcing his decision tomorrow, he does have another legit power conference offer. West Virginia had offered him, but he was also making an official visit this past weekend for the Colorado game. If K-State is to land him, what is going on with that situation? Because if you're talking Wilson versus McGee, I think that the Wilson edition would be a higher floor probably than
Yes.
McGee. I think Wilson is even more of like that, like strong late bloomer in terms of what his recruitment is doing, and you can see a pretty good path to where I don't think he'll contribute next year, but I think that would be one that I guess there would be a scenario where I could realistically see him playing some for a good team next year.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Wilson is a guy that I think can come in and play sparingly a little bit. But again, like not that 20, 25 minutes a night in Big 12 play.
Yeah, like
But
if you could get him to give you 5 good guard minutes or something in a
yeah,
game, because you're going to need it at some point.
and he really truly is. He's even more of a late bloomer than Ashton McGee because you look at Xavier Wilson. He played on Mocan Elite, which, if you know, is one of the Kansas City AAU teams. They're really, really good now. They've even gotten better. Even when like I was playing basketball, they've gotten so much better. And he was kind of buried on his AAU team because Mocan is so good now, and also aren't just Missouri and Kansas kids. Which I mean that kind of
Change the
yeah.
name, stolen valor.
Yes, it is stolen valor because they're starting to become like Illinois and Oklahoma kids now on Mocan. It's kind of becoming a wild scene
Hey,
there.
kids, do your parents have jobs? How are you driving to go play in Missouri and Kansas City if you're in Illinois or Oklahoma? Come on.
But Xavier Wilson was just buried on his AAU team because they were so stacked, and just didn't play much. And I think that's kind of why he wasn't really seen a ton on AAU circuit. And then he really explodes this season playing for his high school, which he actually plays with his AAU teammate Aaron Rowe, who's signed with Missouri. Some people kind of like Wilson more than Aaron Rowe, which is interesting because Aaron Rowe is a top 100 signee for Missouri. So I mean, there's something there with Wilson. Again, it's going to be a little bit of a process because he is a late bloomer. This is somebody that you want to play probably sparingly, but not a ton right away because you want him to really develop and really learn under like Doug McDaniel. And if you can bring Max Jones back, Max Jones and those kinds of guys, because he is just a young guy that is going to need a little bit of time. But I think that he probably has a higher floor but a lower ceiling than Ashton McGee, if that makes sense.
Yep. Nope. Makes sense to me.
But I did comp McGee at his high end as an NBA guy, so I guess I kind of said that already.
Well, that's that's all right. Everybody's got to make some kind of comp. That's what people are looking for these days. You got to throw one out that works, and you also want to use somebody that people know. You can't be throwing deep cuts out there. It's early. Get the people excited. If on a serious note, you want more about what is going on with K-State basketball recruiting, the edition today, the possible edition tomorrow, Thursday, that is. You can go sign up, become a KSO member for access to the inside info with recruiting, premium message boards, and a whole lot more. So sign up for your K-State and On3 membership at KStateOnline.com or just go to On3, find the K-State portion of the site, get signed up there. Definitely worth it, especially for anybody that likes to get your thoughts off. Thousands of K-State fans to exchange your ideas with. Now
Andy,
is the port. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, Andy, you don't have to deal with my voice today because I feel like my voice has been cracking all day today on here and on when I was on K-Man.
Second puberty. It's Mitch. How do you think Mitch Fortner at that height got that deep of a voice? So it's just rubbing off on you. We're going to get to that stage now where I tell everybody, if you are not wanting to waste your time with hypotheticals and just flippant fun, you can shut us off. The show, for all intents and purposes, is over. But Drew, because we've got time, because I've done a nice job of not waking my child up, we're going to use everybody's favorite site to lay out the Big 12 scenarios here. We're going to use a little b-ball, not nothing net or .net. So are you down for that? I assume you've got nothing that you need to do.
Yeah, I have nothing else going on tonight.
Okay. All right. Well, let me get the old sharing of the screen up and ready to go.
Oh, we're high tech. I guess I knew that we could share a screen on here. This is the rookie mistake. I forgot about the game that we played during the summer.
Yeah, trust me, I've got this thing figured out now, using it to its fullest capabilities. So let's do this sucker again. Shout out to MRed bball.notnothing.net. This is a fantastic site if you like hypotheticals and what could happen.
Does a great job during football season.
Yeah, he added football. That's huge. That's a big deal. So go check it out and do that. But we're using it tonight for a little basketball. And the last Big 12 game of the midweek just went final. Texas Tech beat Colorado 91-75. So we know how that worked out. Ooh, look at that. We get to switch K-State over because they won. So those games are a lock. They are in the books. They are finished. And now we turn our attention to Saturday, March 8th, the final regular season day in the Big 12. If you just go based off of, because right now the wins are automatically set to where the favored Bart Torvik ranking is. So if the team is ranked higher on Bart Torvik's website, then they are just selected as the winner. So obviously for like Texas Tech, Arizona State, Houston, Baylor, I don't think any of us are going to argue that something is going to happen there. Now, maybe Baylor could win. I doubt it. I think Houston's just rock solid right now. BYU, they will beat Utah at home based on the way they're playing. Colorado, they could beat TCU. Shout out to Jamie Dixon. Lost last night to Baylor. I'm not a Jamie Dixon hater, but I just like pointing out that TCU still has not finished above 500 since joining the Big 12. So their loss yesterday confirms that they are going to be locked in. Yes, that is a great point, Garrett. I will put the link in the comments right now. So anybody that wants to go mess with this website, you absolutely can go ahead and do that. It says my message is sending. It's loading. It'll be interesting.
Unfortunately, you can't get too crazy since there's only one set of games left.
Yeah. Really just want to kind of show what we're looking at here. So if we just leave it with the assumed winners in there, which again, I know I always say, this is what it would end up. And this is why I talk about K-State's situation being so important. So their win tonight hits with tiebreakers and everything else, moved them into a spot where they would be the 10. That's significant because you don't see Houston, you don't see Iowa State, you don't see BYU, you don't see any of the really good teams right now. So that's nice to see.
No, you see the team that's probably playing the best out of any Big 12 team not named Houston.
Who's that?
Texas Tech.
Oh, see, I think people would argue it's BYU right now, Drew.
Yeah, I mean, that's valid.
Texas Tech, you do not scare me. I just want you to know that. You do not scare me.
They do me, but I think that's because I like a lot of their roster.
I do like a lot of their roster, but you do not scare me. So that's what it would look like if we just left everything the same. Now I know people are like, okay, let's get into the hypotheticals. Let's BS our way through the rest of the evening. Okay, let's do that then. Let's. Oh, Garrett's with me. He says it's BYU. So take that, Drew. All right. I know we all want to say, hey, K-State gonna win. They're gonna beat Iowa State. You know, we hate the clones. They suck. Woo woo woo. There we go. Let's do that. Let's just say for the fun of it, K-State does beat the clones because they suck. Woo woo woo. That's what we get. That would put K-State at the 8 seed. We talked about it, Drew. We talked about it. You remember what we talked about?
It could happen.
We talked about it.
A hideous 6-10 tie.
Yeah, that would be hilarious to have 6 through 10 tied at 10-10. So that would put that. Now this is the thing. If you're wanting to be a dreamer, shout out to my college roommate and high school golf teammate Ryan Anderson. We called him the dreamer because in middle school in choir he sang, I'm a dreamer. So if you want to be a dreamer like the Crandy Man, K-State, bye right there. But Houston, dream's probably dead on arrival. It'd be fun not having to play the loser day. It'd be fun to get the race to 8 locked in, to get, Coleman Hawkins, Mr. Big Shot right there, Mr. 3000 himself. That would be great. That would be awesome. But, and like a lot of people pointed out, it would be very funny to tie KU in the standings now with the way this worked out. I understand the humor in that. But that's how that works out. And there's your bracket in that hypothetical.
Can I throw out a hypothetical for you? What happens?
Yeah.
Give me Colorado over TCU.
Ooh, with K-State beating Iowa State?
Yes.
Fantastic. That would give K-State the 7 seed, Drew. That was a great suggestion by you. Way to go. That would put the Cats. That would give me chills. That would be a classic what a moment Bramlage Coliseum situation.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth.
This would actually be probably the best scenario for K-State, where you don't have to play on the first day and you're here. Do you want me? Let's see. Is there any scenario where I can get crazier with this? I don't think so. Like UCF winning
over West Virginia.
Yeah, that doesn't do anything. So K-State could theoretically still be the 7.
Yeah, so Baylor's kind of locked in with where they are.
What if they win though? What if Baylor wins and beats Houston? What madness happens here? K-State the 7 seed. K-State the 7 seed still. But yeah, nothing else really happens. Nothing crazy that goes on there. Okay. Listen here. I need a little reset. Let's just go ACC, Big 12. Get me back to the real situation. Okay, K-State winner there. Now, here's a scenario that none of us want to think about. What if KU beats Arizona on Saturday? Okay, what if that goes on, and then everything else stays the way that we think it's going to happen? And just for fun, because Cincinnati losers, Oklahoma State's going to beat them.
Are you going to add a K-State win? That's tough.
No. Well, we've been over that. We're being realistic right now, Drew. KU, yeah, there you go. 6, 11, and 9. K-State, the 10 seed, 9 and 11. But that puts them 10, 15. There's Baylor there, Texas Tech, Arizona, KU, all in the same area. That can happen. That would be fine. Same type of deal. Things don't change very much if Arizona beats KU. So that's why this win tonight was so big for K-State is. I'm sure there's some crazy scenario that could play out where the 9 seed would be in play. But for the most part, K-State is either going to be that 8 and get that bye and not have to play Tuesday, or they are going to be in the bottom half of the bracket, which, again, I get it. You guys are idiots. Oh, you're stupid. They're not going to win all these games. Yeah, I know I'm stupid. I know they're probably not going to win all these games, but what the heck else are we supposed to talk about on March 5th when this team's 15-15? Like, we have what's in front of us. We also saw this team rip off 6 straight Big 12 wins at one point this season against a lot of really good teams that they might have to face in Kansas City. Like, it is a realistic possibility. It's just not as realistic as the most realistic situation. So we're talking realism here, Drew.
Yeah, can you give me KU beats Arizona, but K-State beats Iowa State? Everything else stays the same.
If K-State beats Iowa State?
Yeah, and KU beats Arizona.
Okay, all right. Oh no, we made it
Oh,
crash. We made it
we're
crash. Oh no. All right. Well,
this is the other fun thing with the site. It does crash quite a bit because it's very well loved.
yeah. Well, we're just gonna sit here. We're gonna just chill for a little bit. Because I did like Riley's suggestion for
Yeah,
fun.
that's a
Can you
great
run the season if
suggestion.
every underdog wins this weekend? Yes. The second that we can actually use the website again, I promise we will have some fun, and then we might just call that the evening. Make that the last
Oh,
little.
I figured that you just drop an ad read right now while we're in this in between time.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you, Drew. I don't have new ones ready to go for the month of March. I really don't know what I can and can't say, other than the fact that K-State is going to Ireland to play Iowa State in football in the Air Lingus College Football Classic. You can go to cats2ireland.com. I don't know if it would do anything for you at this point in time, so I'm waiting until I get a fresh read dropped in my lap. But you can't get single game tickets through K-State anymore. No. That's gone by the wayside. You missed your chance. So deal with that.
I'll still do my fun fact then.
Yeah, I need it. And then once you're done with fun facts, B-ball, not nothing, is back.
Oh, we're back. Official sport of Ireland is Gaelic football, which it's a 15-player game on a rectangular grass pitch, kind of like soccer, but it's a combination between soccer and rugby.
Yeah, I thought the internet, like the countries overseas, I thought they'd all really be into soccer when I did my middle school project on them.
No.
And I was really disappointed to find out that Ireland sucked at soccer. So yeah, cool, whatever. Play a real sport, whatever. I'm not trying to offend you, but play a real sport, move along. If your sport is not played outside of a couple of countries, it's not a real sport.
Weirdly,
an activity.
I do feel like I've seen a game of Gaelic football. Maybe we played it in PE once. I have a vague memory of Gaelic football somewhere in my childhood.
Okay. Well, I'd love to know what the junior blues were doing to play Gaelic football. Okay, here we go. This is Riley's great suggestion. What happens if all the underdogs win? Also, Jonathan, I saw you say next segment. Whether that was in regards to the Aer Lingus College Football Classic, fair, or if it was in regards to this. I did give everybody the warning 20 minutes ago that everything that was coming up was about to be useless, and you can shut us off. I'm giving you permission. Shut us off. Here we go. If all the underdogs win this weekend, boom, Arizona State forks up. Baylor, Sikkim, Utah, screw you guys. Colorado, cool. KU, cool. K-State, well, no, hang on. Let me do that again. KU, not cool. K-State, awesome. Oklahoma State, boom. UCF. Okay, all right. That's a lot of home teams, a lot of home dogs this weekend, or the home dogs barking. Oh, shoot. That would put K-State. Oh, 8 seed. That's fine. That's fine. We'll take it. That's good. Everything else quite literally does not matter. But there you go. Yeah, I don't think that really does anything crazy for you. So
No,
you probably wouldn't want to play West Virginia, but yeah, who cares?
yeah, they beat West Virginia without DeVries once.
True. Let's see. What if we change the outcome of every game in the Big 12 this season, Drew? What if we did? No, I'm not going to do that. That might be.
If we do that, just have K-State 20-0. What happens then?
Okay, so this is if K-State went 20-0 this season. Let's see. Let's just, for giggles, see what would have happened had K-State won every Big 12 game this season. Okay.
It is hilarious that they have this feature that you can undo games that have already been played.
They actually won that one. Oh, then they beat BYU. We all remember their win over BYU, and then they smoked Utah the next game. Came back. They scratched one out against Arizona State. They beat UCF. Oh, they did beat Colorado. They did beat Cincinnati because they suck, and they beat Iowa State. All right, K-State would have won the league, Drew, if they had won every game they had played. Wow. And they'd be sitting pretty right now. Dang. What could have
Yeah.
been? What could
A
have been, everybody?
quarterfinal matchup with KU if they would have gone 20-0. That's wild.
What could have been? What could have been? All right. Well, that'll do it for us. We'll get out of here. It's been an hour. I do want to throw one shout out there because I did it a couple weeks ago, months ago. Don't remember when it was, but I threw it out there. I don't even remember how it organically came up. I was probably talking about my haircuts and dentist appointments that I still travel to Hutch for. And then I had a dentist appointment today. So I saw my dentist and he came in and he said, I heard I got a shout out. And he said, so I've started listening. He had multiple people that came in. And so I was like, yep, there you go. So shout out to Dr. Gillespie, my dentist. I still will drive an hour to come only to him. He's a K-Stater. So, he's got that going for him. And I don't like change if you're somebody that has to touch my body, So if you're cutting my hair, that was a massive shift for me when my daughter was born. My wife was like, you can't keep driving an hour every time you need a haircut. Probably time to find somebody in Wichita. I'm like, I guess. So now I'm comfortable with it. Great question from Jonathan. Who do you got winning the Minnesota High School State Hockey Tournament? Oh, I don't know. I'm sure Mankato's probably good. St. Paul, one of the St. Paul high schools has to have a great team. I got no idea. I'm just naming random Minnesota towns, but we'll get out of here. Thanks for the serious part of it. And then anybody that stayed around for the tomfoolery after, salute to you. You are
the real ones.
Yeah, you're our favorite viewers. If you made it this far, gold stars for you. And we'll do this all again Saturday after K-State and Iowa State play Farmageddon 2.0, where I can guarantee you I will be talking about Cats 2 Ireland at some point during that broadcast. All right, for Drew Galloway, I'm Mason Voth. If you want more coverage of the Cats, go to KStateOnline.com, get all the thoughts from K-State's win over Cincinnati. Also, big commitment on the basketball court today. Could another one be coming tomorrow? You'll get all that coverage and then plenty of stuff to get you through the football offseason as well. So we're out of here. Thanks for watching.